Hey there, sports fans. How we doing today? This is our wild card weekend recap. Um, Had a lot of exciting playoff football. I did terribly on my picks. I A lot of upsets for me this week, I guess. I only picked 2 out of the 6 games. It was a rough one for me, but you know what that means? That means there's a lot of exciting football went down. What we'll do is we'll recap the games real quick. um, we had the Saturday games were Seattle and San Francisco. I had taken Seattle, and this one I thought Seattle was going to be able to pull it out. But you know what? Brock Purdy showed up. He did really well. You know, he 18 for 30. He had 322 yards, 3 touchdowns, and not a single turnover, which is huge. He also had a lot of support from his cast over there. McCaffrey had 15 carries for a buck 19, two catches for 17 yards and a touchdown. Debo had 6 catches for 133 and a touchdown, and he rushed 3 more times for 32 yards. They wound up pulling this one out 23-41. It got out of control. It was a really good game in the first half. Seattle was actually up at the end of the half, and then they just came out and were just dead in the second half. San Fran's defense just shut them down. Gino did have an okay game. He was 25 for 35 for 253. He had 2 touchdowns. He did throw a pick. DK had a great game, 10 catches for 136, I think, and 2 touchdowns. So he did very well. It was again an exciting game right up until pretty much the fourth quarter. The fourth quarters just got way out of control. Seattle just I don't know they let off the gas, and San Francisco put on the gas, and game just got way lopsided. So San Fran took that one. That keeps them in the playoffs. Seattle falls out. Next game was the Chargers and the Jags. Again, this is a game where I took the Chargers, and this was a game I think might be a record. I don't think a quarterback's ever played an entire game, threw 4 picks, and still won a playoff game. This was a game of, I want to say, really composure. I think composure is probably the best word for this game. You had Trevor Lawrence came out in the first quarter. He threw 3 picks. He looked terrible. The Chargers were up on him. Chargers were up on him by a lot. They did score right before halftime to get some points on the board. It looked like the game was under control. And then you had, but at no point did Lawrence really seem to break. He kept his composure. He held his composure. He came out in the second half. They made the adjustments they needed to. And then down the stretch, you had, these guys, fighting it out right down to the end. This game, Jacksonville took this one 31-30. Again, NTN. Great support for Lawrence. NTN came out 20 carries for 109. All 3 of his main receivers had great games. Ingram 7 catches for 93 and a touchdown. Kirk had 8 for 78 and a touchdown. Zay Jones came out, had 8 for 74 and a touchdown. And even Marvin Jones had 3 catches and a touchdown in that mix too. On the other side of the ball, you had the Chargers. They came out. They played consistent ball. Eckler never really got going. Gerald Everett wound up being your main guy during the game. He had 6 catches for 109 and a touchdown. Herbert played well. He played a decent game. He didn't do anything wrong. They didn't. Towards the end of the game, there's a few plays where, again, composure. Huge issue here, and as well as Lawrence held his together. You had an issue with Joey Bosa, where he got mad, and on a play right after they scored, he got a penalty through his helmet. He just completely lost his composure, and it wound up giving them a chance for a 2-point conversion on the 1-yard line. which they went ahead with and got. And again, wound up being a difference in the game here when it came down to it. It was a 1 point game. So hats off to Trevor Lawrence and the Jacksonville team over there. As a team, they did really well. They upset these guys, so that moves them ahead into the playoffs. We'll go over the playoff bracket after we finish the games here. And unfortunately, the Chargers' first shot with Herbert in the playoffs didn't turn out the way they wanted to. But I wouldn't put this one on Herbert. He came out. He played a good game. We had our next game was first Sunday game was 1:00 game was Miami and Buffalo here. You had a game where Miami was starting Skylar Thompson. Now this is the first time in NFL history where the last two picks in the NFL draft, Skylar Thompson and Brock Purdy, both started not only started in a game, started in a playoff game in the same week. So this was interesting, but unfortunately this one went. It was a closer game than it should have been. Buffalo won this one like they should have, but it was 34-31, and this game was a lot closer than it should have been. Skylar Thompson, I don't know really what happened. Buffalo's defense just seemed a little shoddy at times. Skylar Thompson was 18 for 45. Completion percentage was horrible. 220, a touchdown, 2 picks. Miami had no rushing game whatsoever. Really missing Mostert, in his ground game. They had rushed for 46 yards total as a team. It was a really bad game on that side. I don't really know how they even put up 31 points. I really don't. It was just a silly mess. But some of that had to do a little with Josh Allen. He threw 2 picks. He had a good game all around. He was 27 for 39 with 352. He did have 3 touchdowns and 2 picks. Diggs and Davis both had huge games. Diggs had 7 catches for 114, and Davis had 6 for 113 and a touchdown. These guys really, again, came out and handled their business. It would have been a shame to see them lose this one. Miami gave them way more of a run than they should have. So hopefully, but again, this moves Buffalo forward, and Miami, unfortunately, in a year where they were really banged up, it was it's gonna be interesting to see which direction the team goes with Tua next year and his health, and then what direction they move once they decide where they're gonna go with him and his health. It's we'll see what happens over there. Either way, it was a hell of a run for a team that was beat up most of the year and had their issues at quarterback. Our next game, 4:30 game, was the Giants in Minnesota. This game actually was the game that let me down the most here. Giants won this one 31-24. Minnesota, they just really disappointed me in this one. I expected a lot more from them, but I'll tell you what, Daniel Jones, a guy who did not have the team pick up his 5th-year option for next year, so is playing for what's going to be probably a free agency contract or a hell of a franchise tag. He pretty much put the team on his back, and he had a hell of a game. He 24 for 35, 304, 301. I'm sorry, and 2 touchdowns. But he also rushed 17 times for 78 yards. Was the leading rusher in the game. Had a hell of a. He came out. He played his ass off. Cousins did well. He came out. He did well as well. He didn't turn the ball over. He managed the game well. He was 31 for 39, 273. He had 2 touchdowns. It just wasn't enough. The defense kept letting the Giants stay in the game. You got a great game from the rookie over there, Isaiah Hodgins. He had 8 catches for 105 and a touchdown. And the way he's played the last couple of weeks and moving forward, possibly, they might have really landed themselves a good pick with this kid. On the other side of the ball, Hockenson did really well. He had 10 catches for 129. Other than that, you guys, Jefferson caught a lot of balls, but he was under 50 yards. It was all small little catches. Some of them necessary, some of them he never really got himself open downfield well. I got to attribute that, I guess, a little bit to defense there. The Giants defense was able to kind of contain him for the most part, keep all his catches to small little dump routes and slant routes, quick passes. He wasn't dropping anything, but he wasn't getting free at all. It was this moves the Giants forward. Minnesota unfortunately falls out after another really good season. The team unfortunately just can't get their shit together in the playoffs. At the end of the year here, it's frustrating to see because they're a team I was actually rooting for a little bit. I liked what they had over there. I like how they're playing, and we'll see how they grow next year from where they're at. But our 8 o'clock game on Sunday was Baltimore-Cincinnati. And this one Cincinnati took. What was a pretty wild game. First of all, this is a game where everybody, said Baltimore has no business even being in at this point. Even I said it. I think they were a waste of a playoff spot. And to see them give Cincinnati the run for their money that they did. This game came down to, and if you saw it, you went nuts over it. Came down to a fumble on the 1 yard line at the end of the game, which was snatched before it even hit the ground by another play I forgot who he was on Cincinnati, and he returned it 94 yards for the game-winning touchdown. In a team where they went back and forth, nobody really went. Nobody really got. Had an insane game. Chase had 9 catches for 84 and a touchdown. Burrow had a almost below average game. He didn't look that great. He's definitely had some better games this season. But at the same time, they were able to, on a magical defensive play at the end of the game, they were able to pick this ball up and get it in for a touchdown. And, hats off to them. It's a shame that Baltimore went out that way. But again, another team that's hurt, has been hurt, coming into the playoffs hurt. A lot like Miami, where honestly, they probably needed more rest than they did play, game time. And it just, we'll see where they go from here. They've got some issues again at quarterback with Lamar hitting free agency. There's going to be there's going to be some changes. The thing is, if Lamar stays, they got to make changes to work around him, and if he leaves, then the team's got to change itself. So we'll see what happens. In the meantime, again, that moves Cincinnati forward, and Baltimore goes home. Our 8 o'clock Monday game, the last game of the weekend, was Dallas-Tampa Bay. Dallas pulled this one out. Dallas didn't pull this one out. Dallas beat this one out. Dallas, the score was 31-14, but really it was they were pitching a shutout for quite a while. Brady scored, a couple times later in the game. The guy came out, he played his heart out, but so did Dallas. And it took more than Brady. They kept saying, they were resting Fournette so he could be healthy for the playoffs. Fournette had a fucking horrible game. I don't think he fell for more than a dozen yards the whole game. These guys, it was, Dallas came out and came to play. Dak 25 of 33 for 305 and 4 touchdowns. He also rushed 7 more times for 24 yards and another touchdown. Dak put up 5 touchdowns on the board. Dalton Schultz, great game, 7 for 95 yards and 2 touchdowns. You saw, the team just really showed up. They came to play. The defense was all over these guys all game. And Tampa Bay's defense just looked like dog shit. They couldn't put these guys in position. Brady, I think set a record with 66 passing attempts. He was 35 for 66. 351, 2 touchdowns, and interception. That interception was horrible. It was in the end zone. It was early in the game. Would have put them in a good position, and instead they were able to turn that ball around, drive it back down the field. It was just a shameful. It sucks that it went that way. Chris Godwin, 10 catches for 85 yards. Julio actually had a great game. He had 7 catches for 74 and a touchdown. And for who he is and what he's been able to do, it's great to see that he can still play at a good level. But unfortunately, the GOAT got dismantled in this one. He came out, he played as hard as he could. The defense just didn't give him a chance at all. They just let Dallas run all over him. It was pretty bad. So this moves sends Tampa Bay home. I don't know if the GOAT's done or not. I don't know if he's going to retire. I mean, his numbers, again, he had another statistically very good season. Um, he doesn't show a lot of signs of aging. I get nervous that he's going to play to a point where you start wincing when he gets hit. This is a problem with Favre. I love Favre. Favre's my favorite quarterback. Favre and Vic are my two favorites of all time. And Favre, he played to a point where he was getting hit and you were wincing, like, oh, when he got hit, and you were like, shit, man, like, and you wanted him to retire because you didn't want to see him get hurt. The thing is, Brady's not there yet. When Brady doesn't take a lot of hits, and when he does, he gets right back up, dude. He's still tough. He's keeping himself in shape. I don't know if he's done. I really don't. So we'll see what happens there. But that moves sends the GOAT home, and this moves Dallas ahead. Again, I was wrong on most of my picks this week or last week. It was but either way, it's going to be an interesting next round of the playoffs. So the bracket for the next round of the playoffs looks something like Jacksonville and Kansas City. New York is going to play Philly. Cincinnati is going to be playing Buffalo in a rematch of a game we only got 5 minutes of. And then Dallas is going to be playing San Fran. So that's what our playoff brackets look like for next week. Watch our next video. We'll be posting our divisional round playoff preview. And in the meantime, thanks for paying attention. You guys have a good one, man. Hope you enjoyed Wildcard Weekend.